Okay, this is the reading from IELTS book number 9. This is reading text number 2 of the 4 texts that you get. As I do with all these videos, I haven't seen this test before. We're just going to try and answer the questions within the 1 hour, so it's 8 minutes to 3, and so 8 minutes to 4 we should be able to have finished this test. And I will be able to, and I no doubt will make mistakes just like you do, so I never quite get a 9, usually 8.5, because if you even make one mistake in the IELTS exam, you cannot get a 9. The first thing we'll start with is skimming. So you skim the text, read it quickly, but don't forget that it's sometimes a good idea to read some of the question types first. It depends on what type of questions. Have a look at my other videos, which questions are not supposed to be read beforehand. But these questions, if we look over here, we can read beforehand. Now, as you can see here, this reading text has no title, so we are completely in the dark as to what it's talking about. So in this case, it might be worth reading the first paragraph and then coming to the questions and then skimming and finding the keywords here. So let's have a look at the first paragraph. Speech and communication resulting in a detrimental effect on their ability to learn in school. This is likely to have major consequences for the individual and the population as a whole. Okay, so the New Zealand Ministry of Health has found from research that 6 to 10% of children are affected by hearing loss. Okay, so it's something related to hearing loss and auditory function deficient. So other auditory, so it's something related to hearing, and auditory is related to hearing. So we get the general idea that it's talking about people with hearing difficulties. Okay, now let's have a look at these question types. So you need to match the questions, the sections with the questions. So which section contains the following information? So an account of a national policy initiative, so an account. So it's more like a story of how it happened. A description of a global team effort, so that's very important, the word team here. Hypothesis, so a theory as to one reason behind the growth in classroom noise. Okay. Demand for suitable worldwide regulations. A list of medical conditions. Some children more at risk from noise than others, and the estimated proportion in New Zealand. Now we've already seen that 6 to 10%. So straight away we can say that this number 6 is A. So we've already done that one. And let's have a look at these questions down here. So no more than 2 words from the passage. So for what period of time has hearing loss in children been studied in New Zealand? So period of time, and the keyword is studied here. In addition to machinery noise, so in addition, what other type of noise can upset children with autism? That's important. What term is used to describe the hearing problems of children who have not been diagnosed? So what name is used to describe the hearing problems of children who have not been diagnosed? Okay, and what part of the New Zealand disability strategy aims to give school children equal opportunity? New Zealand disability strategy. Notice these are capitalized, so they're gonna mention it in the text. So what part of it aims to give school children equal opportunities? Okay, equal opportunity. Let's have a look if there's any other questions. Okay, write the correct letters. The list below includes factors contributing to classroom noise. Which 2 are mentioned? Okay, so we wouldn't look at all of those. That's not going to help us to answer to scan or skim, sorry, this text. So let's ignore that question. Let's have a look at this. What's the writer's overall purpose? Okay, and there's only one answer correct here. So again, there's going to be 3 distractors. So that's a type of question I would also ignore until I've read the text. So let's read the text now. We're not going to read the whole text. We're going to underline the keywords. Those are usually capitalized letters, and also what I call honey words. They are things like linkers, however, nevertheless, in addition, on the other hand, for example. So we're going to be looking at those. We're not going to read in detail. except the first sentence. So the first sentence we are going to read in detail, but everything else we'll just underline the keywords like Nelson and Solly, and I'll show you some of the honey phrases that I find. So preliminary study, major concern, classroom noise, we've heard that before. Let's just go back up here because we'll have to look at that perhaps. Major concern, okay. Okay, so notice I'm going very quickly. This is a type of honey phrase. This all amounts to, so it means we will have to look back at these factors that they're talking about here if I want to understand what they mean by heightened activity. This word particularly is the type of honey phrase. Okay, now let's read the first sentence. Children with ordinary function deficits are potentially failing to learn to their maximum potential because of noise levels generated. Okay. Alright, so noise control engineering, International Institute, Shire, World Health Organization, New Zealand again. Okay. Alright. While the detriment are not limited to children experiencing disability, those with a disability that affects the processing of speech can be extremely vulnerable. So processing speech, that's probably something related to this autism, which we've got over there. So have a look at that and maybe we'll see something. I'm just going to put D here so we can remember to look back there. There we go, there's autistic. Okay. And here we got autism again, so maybe we should look at E as well for number 8. Autism is considered a neutral, genetic, and lifelong disorder that can cause distress. Information is processed. The way information is processed. Okay, according to Janssen, does not. Okay. This is difficult. But okay, next one. The attention deficit only sustaining attention effort and persistent organization skills. Difficult to sustain these things, okay. Difficult to screen out unimportant information. Okay, right, there's no words here. Speech and communication difficult to isolate and process. High levels of background noise. Okay. In particular, as a honey phrase, invisible. We said something about invisible. Not being diagnosed. So let's just have a look at G perhaps because it might be related. The New Zealand government disability strategy, we've seen that before, so let's have a look at H for number 10. That's not the answer, we're just looking back at them. Has a wide-ranging consultation process. Okay. Objective 3. What term? So it's an interesting name here. That's honey phrase. Especially. Okay. Let's go down a little bit more. Not in the process of formulating their own standards for control of reduction. Okay. It is imperative that is a honey phrase. Okay. So it's a bit trickier than normal. Let's see. An account of national policy initiative. Let's do number 3, a hypothesis, so it should be easier. One reason. So we've got this modern teaching practices, all of that, that's a hypothesis. So they think these are the reasons why they all contribute to the number of children unable to comprehend the teacher's voice. A global team effort. That I must admit. International. To evaluate noise and... Okay, so there's international, so that must be C. Global team effort. Demand for suitable worldwide regulations. Demand. Worldwide regulations. Only limited attention appears to be given to those students experiencing other disabilities. Taken into account in this. Appropriate international standards for... I don't even know what that word means, to be quite honest. But I have a general idea. So it looks like a demand. It is imperative that... So imperative is it is necessary for it. So that's I. List a medical condition. Yes, we saw that. Difficulty is sustained effort and persistence, organizational skills, and disinhibition. These are often difficult to screen and unimportant, focus on everything rather than attending to a single activity, backgroundizing them becomes a major distraction. So that's F. So we've just got to find an account of a national policy initiative. New Zealand disability, so that's New Zealand rather than international. I'm going to take a risk and say this is H, just because it's an account, it explains the national policy initiative. Okay, I think that's it. Right, let's have a look at the next one. So running out of time here. So for what period of time has hearing loss and school children been studied in New Zealand? Okay. I must admit, I didn't see a number related to that period of time. It's a bit tricky. But no doubt but you noticed something that I didn't. It's usually going to be higher up. Oh, there it is, over 2 decades. See, it's so important to underline not just the letters, not just the digits, but also the letters. So for 2 decades, you can just write the number 2. Okay, in addition to machinery, what other type of noise can upset children with autism? So we've got this autism now. Something about machinery. These experiments often found sounds such as crowd noise and noise generated by machinery painful and distressing. So crowd noise. What other type of noise? What term is used to describe the hearing? We have not been diagnosed, so we say that's G because, oops, sorry, what's happening? So G. What term is used to describe the hearing problems of children who have not been diagnosed? Hearing problems of children. So the hearing problems of children are invisible disabilities. Invisible disabilities. Okay, what part of the New Zealand disability strategy aims to give children equal opportunity? Opportunities. What part of this strategy? Objective 3 of the strategy. Okay, now let's go down here. Write the correct letters in boxes 11 and 12 on your answer sheet. Okay, so I do remember modern teaching methods. That's one up here. Let's have a look at it. And modern teaching practices, organization of desks in the classroom, poor classroom acoustics, is there anything like that? Large class sizes, mechanical means of ventilation, cooling systems, ventilation, air conditioners such as air conditioning units, cooling systems. So those 2 modern teaching practices. Okay, and choose the correct letter A, B, C, or D. What is the overall purpose in writing this article? Comparative methods provide solutions for overly noisy solution. That's not that one. It's not providing any solutions. Increase awareness. It's closest to that one. Promote as a model for other countries to follow. No. Let's have a look at the conclusion, because that's usually where you would find the answer for such a question. And it is imperative that the needs of these children are taken into account, setting appropriate international standards. So I think that's increase awareness. Only limited attention appears to be given. So we're going to go with C. Alright, next one. Are we ready? Venus in transit. Now, let's do it with this one here. Sorry. So, thank goodness now we've got a picture and we've got a title, which is makes it easier now. So, Venus, the planet, you can see it there in front of the sun, if you've seen that image before, and it's worth reading this. So, June 2004 saw the first passage such as a transit of the planet Venus across the face of the sun, as seen in the picture. For 122 years, transits have helped shape our view of the whole universe, and they explain why. So these people explain why. 122 years, across the face of the sun, June 2004. Okay, now let's have a look at some of these questions. Which paragraph contains the information? Examples of different ways in which parallax principle has been applied. Description of event which prevented a transit observation. Description of event. Statement of potential future discoveries. Potential future discoveries. Leading on from transit observations. Description of physical states connected with Venus, which earliest instruments failed to overcome physical states connected with Venus. Okay, let's have a look at these. Correct person. So, distance of the Sun from the Earth. Observations of Venus. Very good accuracy, right? And it's a distance could be worked out by comparing observations. Comparing observations of transit distance from the Sun. By okay, whereas the Sun time taken by depends on distance from the Sun. Time taken by a planet to go around the Sun depends on its distance. Good, he witnessed Venus transit, but unable to make any calculations. Witnessed it, but couldn't make any calculations. Okay, let's have a look at this. So these are the type of questions I wouldn't look at. True, false are not given because at least 2 or 3 at least will be incorrect. So that's not something you should be looking at. Let's focus now on the text itself. Remember the first sentence, read the first sentence, and then other words like capitalized words or numbers underlined, as well as these honey words, linkers particularly, and adverbs that talk about the whole sentence. So we've got this June, 8th of June, more than half the population of the world treated a rare historical event. Okay, 6 hours. Rest of the Sun, transit to Venus. Underline these ones with inverted commas. 6th of December, 1882. American astronomer. Went to South Africa to observe the event. It's interesting. I shouldn't be reading all of it. I suppose that is really the first paragraph as well, so it's okay to read the whole thing. But now quickly, we don't have time. So for centuries, that's a period of time useful to know. Mr. Halley, that was November 1677. Again, Halley. Mercury, St. Helena, South Pacific. He realized that useful. Sun by time in the transit. AU, astronomical unit. Earth from the Sun, good. And he was aware that A was one of the most fundamental of all astronomical measurements. Most fundamental of all. Okay, Kepler, 17th century. Sun, but no, the goal was to, it's useful. Sun again, solar system, however, very useful. Halley realized Mercury was. We've got this parallax angle, which is useful because we've seen it up here with this parallax principle. As Venus was closer to Earth, Halley worked out using Venus. Okay. One part, but there was a problem. Unlike those. Nevertheless, these are all very useful. Didn't survive to see either. Okay. Inspired by Halley's suggestion of a way to pen down the scale, teams of British and French versus India and Siberia. Things weren't helped by Britain, France, being Ocean, French warship, Project Undaunted, that's an adverb. It's an adverb. Adjective, but it's related to the rest of the sentence. Mauritius and Madagascar. Philippines, ironically, a nice adverbial to 50,000 kilometers. Okay. Wow, that's precise. But drop effect, dogged, problem, caused problems by this due to the second problem. These type of honey phrases like the first, the second, the third, very useful. Made it impossible to obtain accurate readings. Okay, that's related somewhere to it might be number 21, somewhere in E. There's also another one that which prevented transit observation, maybe E as well here. Both, but that's a little bit hard to analyze the results to observe penis. Director Berlin Observatory and the EU, he got that. Reasonably accurate. Yes. Parallax principle can be extended. It's just, I'm doing that because different ways. Okay, here we got which paragraph contains a problem. So that's F, because that parallax principle can be extended to do these other things. Also, this type of punctuation, M dashes are useful. They often explain quite important information between them. Okay. But have paved the way for what might be between us vital break detecting Earth-sized planets. Okay, yeah, that's quite a lot of underlining in this case compared to the last reading. Let's see if we can do it. A description of an event that prevented a transit observation. Let's just go back to E and see. Very were precise. They were dogged by, which prevented transit observation. Prevented it rather than, okay, they couldn't get right timings, but they weren't prevented from it. So I don't think that's it there. Prevented transit observation. You expect it to be cloud or something. It's the closest one, but I can't find it. Aha, the ships pitching and rolling ruled out any attempt to make accurate observations. So he was besieging the British were besieging his observation site in India. So he went on a warship. He saw a wonderful transit, but ruled out any attempt to make accurate observations. He saw it, but he couldn't make I think that means scientific observations. So you can see it with your eyes, but you can't make scientific observations. So it's a little bit tricky, this one. Let's just double check it's not this one. Accurate timings. Okay, so that must be D. That's a bit tricky. A statement about potential future discoveries leading on from transit observations. Potential future discoveries. Potential future discoveries from transit observations. We saw that down here. and it was detecting Earth-sized planets orbiting the stars. Paved the way for. So that's G here. And just sorry, I haven't realized now. Oh, where is it gone? This is supposed to help you. Don't know what happened there. Later. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, and then a description of physical states connected with earlier failed to overcome. Okay, there we have this black drop effect. So that's E there. Because of this Venus exhibits a halo of light when it's seen outside the sun's disk. Thick layer of gases. That's the problem. So it's got this thick layer of gases. Okay, he calculated the distance from the tip. Fair degree of accuracy. I think this is Halley. Distance from of the sun from the Earth using Venus. He realized that timing the transit, calculating this angle allows to measure what the distance of the Earth from the sun. Halley observed, so that's Halley. That's A. He understood the distance could be worked out by comparing observations of transit. Ooh. Hang on, he realized that from different latitudes, the distance of the person differ by timing the transit from the two widely separate locations. Teams of astronomers could calculate the parallax angle. Oh god. Okay, so distance could be worked out by comparing observations of transit. Comparing. That's A. That's A. Ooh. Okay, well here we've got past perfect here, which is talking about the earlier. So this is later, this is earlier. In the 17th century, Mr. Kepler had shown that the distances of the planets from the Sun governed their orbital speeds, which is easily measurable. So he worked it out. Wow, that's tricky to work it out, but that's Kepler. Oh goodness. Okay. He realized that the time taken by a planet to go around the Sun depends on its distance from the Sun. Time taken for a planet to go around the Sun depends on its distance from the Sun. That's exactly what he did. Show the orbital speeds. Okay, that's B again, because B is Mr. Kepler showing the distances from. Yeah. Okay, we know that Mr. Gentil couldn't do it because he had problems with the French being at war with the British. So he witnessed the event but unable to make it. So that's this Mr. Gentil. C. So Johann Eck. Where is this man? He finally determined the value of A based on these three power measurements. So these, relating to something up here, no. To analyze the results, to observe Venus transits. Oh God. Based on observations of Venus. Observations of Venus. God. By comparing observations. They don't necessarily say compare, it's just based on these different, this guy, these guys, these guys. And it does say S, so that must be D. Oh, tricky. Okay, here we go. And now true, false, not given, our favorite. Do the following statements agree? He observed one transit of the planet Venus. That's false. He observed a hang on. Did he personally observe? He observed a transit of the innermost planet, Mercury. By timing the transit two separately. He rose them. Seems so strong. I observed a transit. Okay, well, I'm just going to use some mathematics. In 122 years, this probably takes a long time. There's no way one man can see it twice, so that must be false. Oh. It doesn't explicitly say it. Teams or the... Okay, I'm using my knowledge. If that's not given, I'll be angry because you can work it out. If this is 100... Okay, anyway, we'll see. 𝕤𝕤𝕤𝕤 managed to observe a second Venus transit. Did he? Okay, if he did, then number 22 is not... Oh God, okay. This is tricky. I didn't get much sleep last night. Mr. 𝕤𝕤𝕤𝕤. Where is he now? He saw on... Observe the next transit in the Philippines. Okay. After travelling 50,000 kilometers, his view was clouded at the last moment. Must have been within the same year. It doesn't necessarily mean Halley didn't observe. So he didn't. It was clouded out at the last moment. Therefore, he is false. But did Halley observe? We don't know. If he was able to do it, there's a chance that Halley did or could have done as well, and it's not mentioned here. The shape of Venus appears distorted when it passes. It starts to pass in front of the sun. I think that's right. It looks smeared, not circular. Difficult to establish timings across the sun. Smeared, not circular. So the shape looks distorted. That's true. Early astronomers suspected that the atmosphere on Venus was toxic. Gases, a thick layer of gases, but toxic, I don't think that's mentioned. We're focusing on Venus. Parallax principle allows us to work out how far away distant stars are from the Earth. Well, we said that's true because extended to measure the distances to the stars. So that's true. So Venus was toxic. I don't think so. Alright, and the last one then. How new research reveal how they think differently. Right, let's have a look. So this is the title. A neuroscientist reveals how to think. How to think differently. Okay, in the last decade of revolution has occurred in the way to think about the brain. Evolution, the way they think about the brain. Firing patterns of neurons. Specific patterns. Study the main secrets to success in economic environment. Definitely. The brain can do this. Is an iconoclastic one, briefly an honor. The person who does something that others say can't be done. Okay. These are the type of questions I would not look at. I could look at only the questions, but not the distractors before you read. So, you field of study which tries to in this case. Okay, according to the writer, they're distinct because brain works efficiently because perception is. I can't think. According to the writer. Again, these ones are not good. True, not given. But let's have a look at these ones here. Complete each sentence with the correct ending. Thinking like a success is demanding because it is demanding. Thinking like it. Social brain useful to because asset because of their way of thinking. Right. And that's it. The white space. Okay. So let's read now. This different from other people. The brain is different in 3 distinct ways: perception, fear response, social intelligence. Each of these functions different circuit in the brain. Okay, but by understanding these constraints, the first thing to realize is that the brain suffers from limited resources. Okay, this is repeated. For example, thus this happens at all at the same time. We think perception. Perception is central to see things differently to other people. Sometimes these short sentences can be written, with a semicolon. It's worth reading the first 2 sentences. Either is useful one. Terms. The best way. That's a nice honey phrase. Remember things that it's never encountered before. But the problem is it tends to treat the brain's fear system. But fear. Okay, finally. Social intelligence comes in. So it is other people. In the past decade, has revealed present perfect sometimes is reveal some information. Conquest create new opportunities in every area, from artistic expression to technology to business. We saw that word asset. It's crucial. Major asset. Where did we see that word asset? Generally an asset because their way of thinking rules aren't important to them. Face alienation and failure, but can also be a major asset. It's crucial for success in because the way of thinking. Create new opportunities in every area. They supply creativity and innovation, not accomplished by committees. Okay. Ooh. Don't know. I don't know this asset. Let's see. I have to come back to that. It might have been mentioned before, which I haven't noticed. Okay. 6-2 tries to study the brain's secrets to success in an economic environment that demands innovation. Competitive fields. Economics. Competitive fields. Differently from competitors. See. Distinctive because different 3 perception, fear response, social intelligence. Create unusual different circuit in the brain. The brains function differently. Each of these functions utilize a different circuit in the brain. Be careful. Brains function differently. See things differently to other people. They don't fall into the efficiency pitfalls such as the average person's brain either, because they are born that way through learning or found out a way to work it out. Their brains function differently, they create unusual circuits. Unusual brain circuits, does it say that? Different brain circuit. Okay, no. Go with that one. I think that's trying to trick you. The physical workings of the brain place limitations on the way we make decisions. All right. B. Okay, according to the writer, the brain works efficiently because it interprets logic. It's fixed energy. Work as efficiently as possible. When confronted with information streaming from the eyes, it will interpret this information as quickly as possible. Draw on both past experience and other sources such as what people take to make things of what it's seeing relies on previous events. The writer says that perception is, okay, what's this keyword, perception, is not simply a product of what the eyes see or ears transmit to your brain. More than physical reality of phonon and sound waves, product of the brain. A reliable no. Combination no. Result of brain process yes. Process we're usually conscious of no. According to the writer, an iconoclastic thinker successful willingness to be exposed to what is fresh and different, embrace novelty while most people avoid things that are different. Has more opportunity. Centralizes one part of the brain. Which do not inhibit their reactions. I don't know if I'm going to finish this. Wow. One part of the brain. I don't think that's right. It could be. Has the brain that's hardwired for learning? No. Has more opportunity than them? No. Which cognitive traps? B. Exposure to different events forces the brain to think differently. In different events. To see things, to bombard the brain with things that never encountered before. Different events forces the brain to think differently. But what do they mean by different events? What is this word? New events, maybe. What do they mean? I don't know what that means. Usually receptive to new experiences, unusually receptive, true, or yes, sorry. Most people are too shy to try different. Most people know that's a third of people. 1/3 of people are scared of. Where does it say that? Their brains do not fall into efficiency platforms. That's the one before. We found it there. Pitfalls. It said 1/3 of people suffer from something. So that's not to try different things, but not as that's not given. It says 1/3 are scared to talk in public. If you think in an iconoclastic way, you can easily overcome fear. Yes, because I'm running out of time. When concerned about embarrassment matters less, other fears become irrelevant. I've got 4 minutes. Public speaking, here it is. Affects 1/3 of the population, but that's different things. Okay. Other fears become irrelevant. I think that's not given because there's no mention about matters less. Well, it doesn't matter less. It's just they just mention it here, but it doesn't matter less. Fear of public speaking is a psychological illness. Is not. It is too common a variant. No. Oh, where is it? Too common to be considered a mental disorder. So this is no. Right. Thinking like a successful icon is demanding because it leaves one open to criticism and rejection. I think that's right. A major impediment to thinking like stops the average person. Two that inhibited are people who generally find difficult. Fear of uncertainty and fear of public ridicule. Yeah, come in, Minnie. Quickly, just come in. Yeah, I've got 4 minutes to go. I'll speak to you. Okay. Because criticism and rejection, fear of uncertainty, fear of public ridicule. Actual criticism or perceived criticism. Both, I think that's A, because it's perceived, not actual. The concept of the social brain is useful to iconoclasts because it concept of the social brain is useful to iconoclasts because I don't know where this is. I've got 2 minutes left. Social brain. Groups coordinate decision making. That's all I can see. B. And then we were stuck with this one. Understanding how perception becomes intertwined with social decision making shows why success workers are so rare. I have no idea. God, this is tricky. I think it's probably C. Artistic, I don't know. To any organisation, both artistic and scientific. I think that's C. Okay, so just in time, 1 minute to spare, and I will give you the answers in a second. Okay, now we've got the answers on the left over here, and my answers over here, and let's see how many I got wrong, considering I had to rush at the end. So H, the first one, which is good, and C is good, then B, A, now there's a mistake, medical conditions, which some people a list of medical conditions which place some children more at risk from noise than others. So a list of medical conditions, and that is, sorry, 1, That is D, not F. It's a list of medical conditions. Hearing impairment, autism, ADA, and ADHD. List of medical conditions, and I got it mixed up with medical condition. Okay, so this is the result of the the genetic disorders rather than the actual name of the medical conditions. So there we go, one mistake so far. The estimated proportion, we've got A is correct. Good. Now we've got 2 decades, that's fine. Crowd noise, which is fine. Invisible disabilities, which is fine. And objective 3, that's correct. Okay. Now we go down to A and C, which is correct, and 13C, which is correct. Yay. Alright, and now the next one. F is correct, D is correct, G is correct, E is correct, and D and A is correct. And then B and C is correct. Thank goodness for that. A bit worried. Especially question 18. And then 22 is not given. And this is false. Okay, let's go back to him. So Mr. Halley observed a transit. Nevertheless, he predicted, so he is talking about Mr. Halley or Mr. Kepler, so he had shown, so we're not talking about, this is tricky, the past perfect here is talking about Kepler, but the rest of he here is related to Halley worked out, so he didn't, so that I can understand why that is false, sorry about that. False. True. Again, not given. Suspected that they suspected. Oh, I see. Of course it's not given. Because they may well have, but it's not explicitly saying. One way to check with these not given ones is to make this into a question. So, did early astronomers suspect that the atmosphere was toxic? Now that I've made it into a question, if you can genuinely say don't know, then that's not given. If you can genuinely say no, then the answer is false. And of course here, there's no no to that question, so therefore it's not given. Something I should have done with these. And number 6 is true. 26 is true. Alright, so we've got C is correct, we've got B is correct, we've got D is correct, C is correct, and B is correct. Only through removing the non-possible answers, that was the last one that was possible to do there. Okay, and on questions 30, 32. So we've got this one, another, I'm currently on 8 points out of 9, a native English speaking teacher of IELTS and I've got 8. It's very embarrassing. Okay, so again, does exposure to different events force the brain to think differently? Apparently the answer is yes. Now remember, I didn't like this word different. I don't know if they're referring to something else. If you can leave a comment as to what they mean by number 32, because I understand if it's new events or events that you've never experienced before, then I would have put yes, but I had a problem with this word. So if you can find what they're referring to get the answer clearly yes, I'll be happier, but I'm not exactly convinced this is a well-worded question. 33, I'm unusually receptive to new experiences. Yes. 34, not given. Okay, I'm close to 7.5 so far. If you think in an iconoclastic way, you can easily overcome fear. 35, no. If you think in a can you easily overcome fear? Let's see if we can find this. Fear of uncertainty. One problem is that it tends to... Fear is a major impediment in thinking like an iconoclast and stops the average person in his tracks. Apparently it's no. Can you easily overcome fear? They have an extraordinary willingness to expose to what is fresh and different. They embrace novelty and avoid things that are different. 35, no. Can you easily overcome fear? Where does it say they do still have fear? Oh, I don't know. Again, number 35, if you can find the place where this is correct, where no is the actual answer, please leave it in the comments. Thank you. 36, not given, and 37, no. And A, B, and C. Okay, so particularly tricky. The last reading I managed to finish with at least 10 minutes to spare, but these little, just from my point of view, a bit tricky ways of asking the questions can or has caused problems. So anyway, at least you can be rest. You can how can I say this? You don't feel so bad if you got a poorer mark in this reading, because even I only had four correct. No, you know what I'm trying to say. My brain is tired after this exam. So thank you very much for listening, and look up for the next reading maybe in about 2 weeks' time. Thanks.